the go live button.
Yeah, why not? I mean, this is all gold.
It is all gold. You are so right. And when you're right, you are right. Yes. So we are just going to keep talking a little bit of smack, crap, while we prepare ourselves for the moment of truth. There is a little lag.
Do we have to be quiet during the? Do we have to be quiet during the logo?
No, I'm letting it through because I am going live, and then I stop the post of the live stream going out as a replay, and then I chop up the next day the replay and then repost it and cut all this crap out. So you only get this gold. You only get these golden nuggets of talking crap when you come in
live.
Live. That's right.
Yeah.
The benefits. All right, and we are in 3, 2, 1. This week on the Adobe Video CHiNWAG, we're exploring the depths of Media Encoder. Don't assume this app is full of crappy presets. There's more than meets the eyes as you customize. Edit here, yet render there. Watch folder this space and embrace your inner YODA of Media Encoder. Join in the live stream with Jon Barrie and Paul Murphy this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Melbourne time. And we are here live for you. Hello. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of the Adobe Video CHiNWAG, where we are talking about, well, we're going to talk crap a little bit, but the main topic is about Media Encoder and embracing your inner YODA. Can you do a YODA voice?
I can't. I immediately thought it was going to come down to who can do the better YODA, and I'm just going to surrender right here.
Maybe we should have tried that. I used to be able to do it, but it's this back of the throat thing that's like, I'm not sure I could do it actually.
It's a little bit Miss Piggy. There's a little bit of Miss Piggy in there, and of course there's the swapping of the sentence. You do the end of the sentence first.
So
with that information, give us a YODA.
Yes. Now I'm wondering if our audio is coming through twice.
Echo.
Let's try that. Can anyone tell us whether or not there's an echo?
Echo.
There we go. Did I fix it? Now we've got a lag here of like 20 to 30 seconds to see if it got fixed.
So we're not going to know for 20 to 30 seconds.
I know. So we're just going to keep talking crap the whole time.
Can't be that patient. And then if they tell us in 20 seconds, it's going to take us another 20 seconds to react to
fix that. Yeah. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
We could just mess with people and just be like, echo. All good, it's fixed. Thanks, Al. Righto.
Excellent.
Who have we got? We've got Cedric, Al, Undead Will Destroy All. Fantastic. Don't know who that user is, but we are happy to have you with us live. Yeah. Now, I'm just wondering if anyone is even watching the Facebook bit. Probably not. I'll just say hi. Hey.
Howdy, Facebook. How's it going?
I don't think anyone is watching it there, but that's all right. If they do happen to jump on, then they're going to get all this goodness. I'll just keep my eye on the other stream. Paul, you're out of sync. Oh, good Lord. Fine, then. I will bring him back into sync.
Bring me back into sync?
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
Well,
maybe because I'm using merged clips. Could that be it?
It could be. And in the preferences, do you have show clips out of sync when they're not linked?
I unlinked by unlinking the video, moved it around, didn't pay attention.
Right. Okay. It should be in sync now. Now, the reason why it's probably not in sync is that we've set things up a little different again. Each episode, we try to iterate this and make it a little bit better we get on board and we have a chat after, and we kind of think of different things through the week, what we can do to make it even better. And so we've now got 2 video chats for us going. One is just for his screen share, and the other one is for us to talk. And because
that's what it takes.
It does. And, we dedicate ourselves to making this the best possible experience for you.
And thus far, we've failed at that.
We have. Fail is a very strong term.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's inaccurate. It's just strong. So, all right, what are we talking about? We're going to have a little... Are we having a CHiNWAG?
I think we're having a CHiNWAG right now. I want to hear the story behind the video that you put up online today to help let people know about today's show. Tell me that story.
Okay, so I'm trying to come up with other ways every day to just say, oh, hey, the show's coming up, blah, blah, blah. And this morning I went for a walk. I try to go for a morning walk every day. And this time I took my camera with me, like my Canon DSLR. It's my older camera, but it's got a decent lens and it still shoots video pretty good. And as I was walking back from walking into town, I was walking past the skate park and there was a bunch, like 3 magpies that were sitting there, and there was a chip packet and they were having a crack at it. And I was like, oh, wow, this is cool. And I sat there watching it for a while and then went, what am I doing? I have a camera.
So, of course, that's like the Australian equivalent of what happens in New York, which is they have like Pizza Rat, which is a rat dragging an entire pizza up the stairs in a subway. So you were capturing the Australian equivalent of that.
That makes sense. So, then I shot that bit of footage. It was all handheld. So it managed to be moderately okay. And then I used some other tricks like, warp stabilizer and some auto reframe and things like that. But I tried to make it out like this one bird was trying to hog all of the chips for himself while his mates were just over a little bit and they were like singing, kind of going, mate, what's going on with the chips? You going to share the chips? And then asking people to share the link to this.
We can talk about how you did that next week, right? Like
if we want,
how
if anyone
to
cares.
make Magpie. Just let us know in the comments. I can't see them, but I assume that the comments are lighting up with people wanting to know how to edit their Magpie videos.
Absolutely not. But we can
what are we talking about this week, by the way?
We're talking about Media Encoder and advanced workflows around it. And I thought, I kept trying to think, what rhymes with Media Encoder? And I ended up coming up with YODA. So
yes.
Which reminds me, I was talking to a colleague and they were saying, oh, make sure you get to throw in Adobe One Kenobi. And I thought, that's a terrible thing. Good. I'm not going to say that. But I just did.
It's good that you told the story that you weren't going to tell that, though.
That's right. Oh, hey, remember this? I'm just going to put this screen up. So this registering to win the Adobe Premiere /Rush pillow, we have quite a few people that have already registered for last week. That registration for last week and the code word is closed. And there's a new one that has opened up based on tonight's episode. And the code word for that, or is it a phrase? Oh, we'll find out a little bit later.
Exciting.
I don't want to spoil it by doing it now. People got to watch a little bit at least, right? Or not.
Media Encoder.
Media Encoder. Cool. Should we get started? I think we get started.
Yeah.
Yeah? All right. So, did you want to kick it off?
Sure. I always like to talk about Media Encoder, and I have a screen if you want to share it. Sure. I like to talk about it because I find that not exporting using Media Encoder. And to me, Media Encoder is one of those things where if I went to a workplace where they said, oh, no, we don't use that, I would be like, Well, then I am not working here, sir. Good day to you. Because the idea that I have to use Premiere to do my exporting, really, I don't like the idea of that at all. And I thought probably some of the people tuning in would know why we use Media Encoder, but I thought I'd just do a very quick summary of the benefit of doing your exporting through Encoder instead of Premiere, just so that we're all up to speed on it. And then, of course, we're going to go into some deeper dive tips and tricks and things like that. But just to very quickly sum it up, we're going to quickly talk about exporting from Media Encoder versus Premiere Pro. Now, the biggest thing for me is that it's not going to lock up Premiere, in that I can select my sequence here and I can go File, Export, Media, and brings up the screen we're all familiar with.
Yeah, there we go. Now I'm sharing your screen. Sorry. Go for it.
All of those sequences at once, rather than having to go export this sequence and then export this sequence and then export sequences. So being able to do all of that at once is big for me. So of course we just select all of our sequences here, File, Export. And still not lock ourselves out of Premiere. That's a big one for me.
Do you know what? We've just had our first faux pas. So there's audio missing. So annoying. Audio missing when I switch to your screen.
Oh. Well, I can just talk through it. I can just talk through it if that's better.
You can. I've changed that around. Just give me a second, everybody, because you know it's live.
So every time we switch to my screen, it's just silence.
Because the signal's not coming through. 1 second.
So everybody would be going, geez, that is quite a dramatic pause you've got there, Paul.
There were some people saying it was not working. Now, if I go to me, right, so I need to fix that there too. This is awesome, hey. Okay, whoop. And we're going to have, you gotta love it when you try new things. And it's all about trying new things, right? Okay, there we go.
Sometimes it is.
Yes, now we can hear you there, 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 and not there. That's correct. All right,
and now we're looking at me.
I'm fixing it. It's fixed now. All possible... well, except for this one. And in the replay, all this will be cut out.
No. Keep it in. That's a deal breaker.
Well, okay. We'll see. Maybe. We'll see. All right, my friend. We're good to go now. When you are. Okay, back to your screen.
If you switch back to my screen, can you hear me?
Yeah. See,
testing,
now I've got to get rid of that. Then I've got to put that there. Dear
testing,
me.
1, 2.
Okay, boop. Right, so you shouldn't be there. You need to be under there. Then this one, where'd you go? Where did you go, my friend? You're there, but why is that not working? Oh, holy moly. We've bamboozled ourselves. So the teams It's the teams 2 up. Ah, no, that's correct. Okay. There.
Yeah.
And turn you off. And then there. Yes.
Ah.
And there. And yes. All good. Oh, wow. That was an ordeal. You're going to have to go back to the start because I think we lost half of it. And magically, it's gone in the replay. So sorry, people.
Editing in the editing application. Do your exporting over in a different application. You don't want to mix up those two things. And then number 3, export multiple sequences. So as you saw, I had a lot of different sequences loaded up here. So for social and things like that, the idea that I could just go, you know what, I just want to do, I don't know, let's do an audio only. To export multiple formats is really, really good for when you've got like lots of different deliveries. And then automation as well. And we'll talk about this. We're going to go deep into watch folders for us, but that's all part of the automation advantage. And then finally, you can use it with After Effects in Audition as well. And they have their own advantages in that if you do it with After Effects, so the render queue in After Effects is very limited in terms of the formats that you can output. If you add Media Encoder to that, suddenly you're able to put out XMFs, you're able to put out H.264s, so you don't have to render something out and then render it again. And the advantage with Audition is that you can actually export video formats out of Audition. So Audition classically, naturally only works with audio, but once you add Media Encoder into that, then you can export out the video with an edit as well. So if normally audio is the last stage of your process, so if the audio is shown up with a video track, you can then export that out of Audition as well. And that's the argument for me why Media Encoder is like the superior tool that you should be using for exporting. And it's very versatile too. There are a lot of like little nooks and crannies in there that not a lot of people know about. And I believe, John, you actually have a few sort of tips and preferences that people should know about.
I do. That's right. Thanks, Paul. We did have a couple of technical things there, but we'll sort it out in post.
No.
It was minimal. It's
natural. It's real.
Minimal. Yeah, well, and continuing on. Oh, dear. Okay, right. So I wanted to talk about the preferences panel, right? So there's some things in there, you mentioned before the whole preferences thing for why you wouldn't want to render directly out of Premiere Pro because you end up stopping, right? But you can do some changes that affects the way that Media Encoder works when you address the pause in the background rendering, and you do that inside of Premiere. And the reason that you might not want to do that is that when you do, you'll get a performance hit in trying to play back in the timeline if you continue to work while Media Encoder is rendering in the background. So I'll just show you where this awesome function is. So it's in the preferences, and let's see, I'm pretty sure, I've forgotten where it is. I think it's in general. Let's bring this up. Okay, cool. Now, it is not there. It is media. I should have looked this up before I jumped in here. because I used to
It's
get it
I
in the
think it's
memory. No.
playback. I think it's playback.
Oh, you're right. It is in playback. Here we go. Choose your own
Yeah.
adventure. So this is the spot here. Pause media encoder Q during playback. So this came in a few versions ago, and a lot of people didn't realize that it came in. I think a few people tried using it and then went, "Oh, this is why that's doing weird things." If you turn it off, you are going to keep the rendering in the background. So when you hit play inside of Premiere Pro while Media Encoder is rendering in the background, you will stop the rendering process. It will pause. And the second you stop playing back, which is part of the decisions that you do as you're moving around the UI, then that will continue doing the rendering in the background using as much resources as it can, right? Without making your system grind to a halt. And when you turn it off, then that means, and I wonder if there's actually some kind of, sometimes there's a little pop-up that tells you, nah, I'm not getting one. Not getting one. That means that it will just continue the entire time and it won't pause at all, even if you play back inside Premiere Pro. Then you will get a hit, though. You'll get a performance hit when you are trying to play back. Cool.
I turn this off when I use the iMac Pro because I find that the iMac Pro is powerful enough to handle exporting and cutting at the same time. I turn it on when I'm on a weak machine, and I turn it on when I'm going through like a USB 3 cable. Well, maybe not USB 3, maybe like USB 2. If for some reason I have to cut with a USB 2 external drive, then you've got a bottleneck there. So that's when I'll turn it on.
Cool. Yeah. Some systems can totally keep up with it. But in most cases, you probably want to test it and check it out. All right. So let's see what this other line here is. So the auto render countdown. A lot of people don't realize that this is even something that they could be doing. So let's flip over here and jump into the media encoder preferences. And just look at this top bit here. I'm just going to zoom in on this. Let's do that amazing zoom. Boom. So this option here, if you were to tick this start queue automatically, that means that you can set in, well, point values. So if you did, oh, good Lord, that was interesting. 0.01 of a minute. That's how you're going to adjust your values, right? So that's a little
What
bit
is 0.01 of a minute?
Well, it's 1/10, which would be 6 seconds.
Okay. Oh yes, very good.
That's.
Do you have a magic number for that?
I'm just guessing, right? Magic number. Well, I think 2 minutes is probably good because the reason why I leave it 2 minutes is that if I send a job over, and sometimes I'll send it over to Media Encoder and I haven't actually finished setting up what the codec is supposed to be and where it's supposed to go. I might have sort of just thrown it out, and then I'm going to fix up all those bits inside of Media Encoder. And if I've done that and I've set it for 6 seconds, let's say, it started the process, it's creating the render, it's rendering it out somewhere that I didn't want it to go out to. It just gives me a bit of time to make those adjustments if I need to, add another encoding format to the queue, because I might want to do it in, a master and then do a H.264 or a MXF or whatever. And then 2 minutes is all right, because then if I haven't, then I forget to go and hit the play button to go and set the queue off.
I reckon when I don't have that turned on, there's at least one time a day where I come back to my computer and I'm like, I thought you were exporting. It's just sitting there. So turn it on and you'll save yourself from hitting yourself on the head at least once a day.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, that's kind of where that's where I am with that one, right? So 0.1 of a minute is a bit of a weird one. Oh, there we go. 0.1 of a minute is a bit of a weird one. So I tend to leave that at 2 minutes. I keep typing something in and then it just shoots off somewhere. very uncouth. This show cue elapsed encoding time. Not so important. Not going to bother. The thing that's kind of cool though is this chime. So if any of you have been using After Effects, you'll notice that when it finishes rendering, it makes a chime, a diddly ding.
Bling.
Yeah. So that diddly ding, because that's the official term, right? Diddly ding. That diddly ding is useful because you know that even though you're maybe going away to do something, it chimes and you go, oh, it's finished doing the render. Same thing here. It's the exact same chime sound. And it's good to have if you know you've got a bunch of things going off in the background and then you kind of forget that that's maybe another part of the process you're meant to get onto. So the chime is quite useful. Another thing I wanted to highlight, which was not on my list, is this enable parallel encoding. So I don't know if you've ever seen that, but if you've got more than one type of MP4 or a HEVC as well that you want to do, so you want to do a 720, you want to do a 1080, and maybe the original was 4K. So you're trying to do a 4K, full HD, and a 720p encode of the same file or the same sequence. It will actually parallel encode them at the same time, which means overall they all get a little bit slowed down by the process. So, sorry, let me just bring that up there. So the enable parallel encoding is on by default, and when it's working, you'll get usually all three things out about the same time-ish. Sometimes one will be a bit quicker. But if you turn that off, it'll just go through one at a time, which means you'll get out of your queue, it'll do one job at the same time. Now, I'll show you what that actually looks like. So let's hit OK here. So I'm just going to reset the status of this job, which is done. It's finished. Okay. And then if I was to go in and basically take any other H264 thing, H.264, excuse me, and just keep dragging. So notice I'm adding it to the bottom of the list, or I can drag it on top of the name of the After Effects job. So this is using After Effects right now. And notice this creates a dual list, right? So one job has got two things in that queue of that one job. If I made separate copies of this, so I'll make a copy and then paste that down, or can I? Duplicate. There we go. What it needs to do is actually build and prepare for one of them, and then it needs to build and prepare for the other one. Whoops, I've accidentally clicked on the name. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to have one of these per job. You kind of want one job and they all go out with one preparation, right? So I'll get rid of that second one. And because there's two and they're both H.264, the same format, when I hit go, you'll see that there'll be two boxes that pop up here to show that it's doing its thing. Right? So that's parallel. And it means that it gives a little bit to one, a little bit to the other, a little bit to one, a little bit to the other. So I'll just stop that. When you turn the parallel off, it will do one, then it'll go to the next one. And it tends to be a little bit quicker. But anyway, it's up to you how you want to manage that. So the other thing I wanted to highlight is this preset destination, because a lot of people, I've noticed, tend to constantly sort of render things out to kind of the same place, but they go in and then they sort of set it up again. So let me reset this. You can see here I've got one that's going to a Z drive and another one's going to a G drive. But if you, in the preferences, actually set up this specify output file destination and then browse where that's going to go, that could just be your, like a master dump location. And when I say dump, I don't mean taking a dump. I mean everything that you add in will go to that spot. So let's put it on the safest place in the world, the desktop, and hit OK. And then anytime there's a new job that comes in, and I will use, I'm going to be sneaky here, I'm going to use a Creative Cloud team project to do this. CHiNWAG, here we go. So I've got a workflow demo thing here, and there we go. So I've got this Magpie thing, and I'll add this to the list, right? And then you'll see it will go to the desktop. Even though I haven't said anything else, by default, it's now going to, lo and behold, the desktop. So that can be super useful to just have one spot where you want things to go. And that's the last of my bits as far as my little tips to do with the preferences.
Nice.
Back to you.
Yeah, this. Oh, geez, I'm getting some like film noirish lighting here.
Oh, wow.
Because the sun is setting.
That's amazing.
Let's see, maybe I can just sort of turn around and avoid it. There we go. Oh, but I got to be on camera. There. Oh, it's really hard adjusting the camera with the lag. Can you just? Oh, there we go. There we go. I'm back.
All right, let's have a look
really
here.
Interesting.
There's a question here which actually is probably going to go into what you're about to talk about. So,
oh dear.
Are there plans to allow AME to choose which audio tracks to use in the export? Example, use the stereo tracks on 7 and 8 rather than front left and front right tracks on 1 and 2 of a multi-channel file. Ooh.
Do you have an answer for that? Because I'm going to say I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no to that.
Maybe.
I'm going to say that needs to be done in Premiere.
I would say that Premiere is probably the right tool to do it because you have absolute control then.
You're routing.
Yeah, because you actually have to reroute.
All
right.
It will select the first. It will select the first 2 tracks.
Yeah.
And in Premiere you have to say no. Select the 7th and 8th track.
Right, because you're controlling the channeling inside of Premiere Pro. Because the thing with the way Adobe tries to do things here with all of this workflow stuff is they try to do no harm to the source. So if you want to completely manipulate the way that the source is actually being used and then converted, you have to do it in Premiere. Media Encoder will just sort of send it straight through based on what it's got in its own source. It won't. You can't manipulate.
The only caveat to that is we were using the word front left and front right, and I do know that if you're exporting out 5.1 that there are a few different configurations of 5.1. So you can do LRC, LF, RF, but there's a few different configurations. That's probably the closest you can get to rerouting audio is to mix up the order of the 5.1 using those different outputs. But otherwise, I don't think you could do anything that complex as saying, no, send channels 7 and 8 to 1 and 2.
Yeah. In short, yes. Continue, my friend.
Make a preset. Yeah, I'm going to talk about presets. And I'm going to share my screen.
And I'm sharing your screen right now.
So it's very interesting to note that in Media Encoder, we actually have the ability to save workspaces, which kind of blows my mind a little bit because the layout of panels here is just so simple. And much like the panels in Premiere, we can also use the tilde key to make things bigger and smaller, or the accent graph as we were discussing last week. And for that reason, I'm going to use the tilde key to make my preset browser bigger, because this is one thing that you just would never want to do in Premiere, and that is to organize all of your presets using just that export window. If you can do it inside of Media Encoder, it's a lot easier. It's as easy as somebody sending you some presets and just being able to drag them straight into this panel here. But I'll just show you a little bit of how this works. At the moment, I'm looking at my system presets, which is just what comes with the software. So we've got some Apple ProRes here, and this is sort of organized into Adobe stock, audio only, etc. So this is all things that come with the program, and you can't delete any of these. But where it gets really interesting is that you can create your own presets and you can create your own groups like this as well. I should also mention, and John, you did this a little bit before, is that you can also search for anything here. So we have a dedicated search panel, and that's searching on any sort of metadata associated with your actual preset. So, you know, if I was looking for codecs that are H.264, it's going to show me all of those based on that. But also, if I wanted to see all of my codecs or formats that supported 1920 as a dimension, I could do a search on that as well. So that little search bar is very useful. But where it gets really useful is when you get into these user presets and groups. And let's just start by creating a user preset here. We can do that just by clicking our little plus button here. And we have the option to create an encoding preset or an ingest preset. I won't talk too much about
what's the difference.
I won't talk too much about the ingest preset, other than to say that this is what you're using to create proxies, but also to ingest copies of your media into Premiere. And the way I like to think of it is an ingest preset tends to hold an encoding preset. So an ingest is controlling the media that it's creating. The encoder preset is actually controlling the format and everything like that. Unless you had a better definition for me, John.
That's good. It's very good. That's right.
So if you're dealing with proxies, if you're dealing with ingesting media and then creating copies of that when it comes in, you're going to need an ingest preset. If you're not doing that, by the way, is ingest presets supported in Prelude? Prelude, which I haven't opened in, I'm going to say 4 years, but I'm assuming that they're using the same presets. I see.
Prelude is
yes,
subtle. Prelude is the beginning of what the ingest thing was about. So Prelude had its own way of doing an ingest preset, and then they put it in a media encoder. So then you can do that through Premiere Pro. So you don't need to use the one in Prelude. So Prelude is kind of not really getting used all that much. We'll see what happens with it. Might not stick around. But I'm not sure they're completely compatible. They're a little bit different process, the way that they work, but the way you set them up is kind of the same.
I will say, I know I said I wasn't going to talk too much about ingest presets, but I will say that I think one of the most useful things about them is this copy files to destination and the ability to verify the file that you're copying. So often, and you know, I've worked on rather big films where I know that files have been transferred from a flash drive onto a hard drive just by eyeballing the size of files, and then we find out later that a bunch of those files are corrupted. But this MD5 comparison is going to go, nope, this is the same file. This is the exact same file, and it will work the exact same way. So this is a really handy thing to have if you are doing any kind of ingesting into Premiere. I got sidetracked, but I always like to mention it. What I wanted to talk about was the encoding preset. And encoding preset, I mean, we all kind of understand the concept, right? This is where we go in, and rather than every day having to go in and say, I want to do an Apple ProRes 422, I want it to be this side, I want it to match the field order and all of that, we just create a preset that we can quickly call upon whenever we need it. But I think what a lot of people don't know about is what goes on in these other tabs over here and how these can be useful in your presets as well. And I actually use these, I'm going to say almost every single day, especially this effects one, but also the publish one. And I'm going to use my own personal example here, is that I am regularly putting up YouTube videos every week. And the most useful thing that I have in my YouTube preset, so whenever I'm exporting a video out and sending it to YouTube, down here, I have loudness normalization turned on, so I can make sure that whatever level I've mixed this at on the timeline, it's going to go to the correct YouTube loudness. So YouTube isn't going to adjust the levels of my audio in any way, which it does. I would go in.
the Premiere Pro video tutorial
I
on
do.
that specifically.
I do,
which is really good.
And I'm going to give you the cliff notes on that so that you
Cool.
don't have to watch it. But go and watch it anyway. Give me the clicks. So
Yeah,
you would
like
set
and
your
subscribe.
loudness standard to ITU. Target loudness for YouTube is -14 loudness units full scale. Your tolerance would be 0, and your true peak would be -1 decibels true peak. So I save that. The other thing that I would check is I would go over to the Publish tab and I would put in my YouTube details so that I'm exporting straight from my timeline and it's immediately uploading that straight to YouTube. And even better is when you put up a lot of YouTube videos throughout the week, the idea of then having to go to that and then putting in the description, putting in the thumbnail, this can just get really annoying. So what I do is I always save my thumbnail for this week's video to the same folder. And then I actually hard code that in here. So I will actually say the thumbnail is always going to be in this folder. So I click export, the video goes up and that thumbnail goes up with it. So I'm not having to manually do that. And when I forget to do it, I get very frustrated. So that's key as well. I'm too clever, John. I'm just too clever. But I will mention like a few other things here that are key, and that is, video limiter. So if you haven't put a video limiter on like an adjustment layer, this is going to do it on your export. You can put in overlays, so watermarks. You could have a preset called watermark. Put the name of the file in there, time code. This is probably one of the most underused settings here, which is time tuner. And this is a really interesting feature in the presets in that you can actually change the overall duration of your video. And in preset world, rather than having to say, I want all of my videos to be exactly 2 minutes long, what you can say is I want all of my videos to be exactly -5%, which makes them faster. So you can say speed them up a little bit, because sometimes I think of YouTube videos as being the equivalent of like selling something, and you wouldn't sell something for $10. You would sell it for $9.99, which is why whenever you have a duration, you want that duration to be just under a minute. So people go, it's only 4 minutes and 55 seconds. Yeah, I'll watch that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where time tuner comes in handy as well.
Do you want to explain a little bit how that works? I know how it works.
So in terms of the concept, you could do like an overall speed change to something inside of Premiere using the speed and duration tool. So say speed this up by 200%, slow it down by 50%. What this will actually do is you say, hey, I want this to be this long, or knock this percentage off, and it will actually analyze the footage and look at the stuff that is fast, that has fast cuts or a lot of movement, and it will do less speed changes to that than it will to shots that are slow. So if you have like a slow pan of a meadow, it'll pull more speed out of that than it will that really fast chase scene in a film. So it's actually a more dynamic way of adjusting the speed. And I've actually done like live examples of this where people can't tell the difference between the long cut and the short cut that I've shown them, even though in the short cut, I've pulled about 5 seconds out of it. You would think you would notice, say like in a 30-second commercial, you would notice if I'd taken 3 seconds. If I'd taken 3 seconds out of that, you would think you'd notice, but this is kind of like more of a ninja in the way that it speeds up certain parts and doesn't speed up other parts.
And the audio doesn't get weird. It's actually freaky tech, and I strongly suggest anyone watching this video to have a play with it and then show someone the original and then this 5% faster one. They will be like, no, it's the same. You're like, no, it's not. Look at the duration. It's freakishly good. It's been in there for a long time.
Long time.
It's probably something we should talk more about. But at the same time, people like to control where they want things to get quicker. But for YouTube, that's an excellent use case for where you just want it to be just a bit tighter, because people do look at, I know I do, I look at the duration of a clip and I go, Do I want to spend 10 minutes? 9 minutes 55. I can spend that. That's fine.
If it's between a 10-minute video and a 9:55, my brain's just gone to the 9:55. I'm like, that one's shorter. I'll do that one.
It's all sales.
Time
isn't
is
it?
money.
That's right.
I'm going to save this preset here. What should I call this?
All
I'll
right,
call this
let me make sure I'm zooming in on that right bit there. So, okay, you're naming
so we
it.
can get the word that so I'm going to call this my AV CHiNWAG export. And then I've got some effects ticked here. I got publish stuff here. I'll click OK. And this, of course, gets added to my user presets and groups. And I'm just going to go back to full screen for a second here, John, just so you're ready with the zoom. Because what that means is, and I did sort of show this a little bit earlier, but if I wanted to then add that preset to all of these sequences that I have loaded here, all I need to do now is click Apply Preset. And it's just added that on top of those other presets that I already have loaded.
Boom. Can you do that again slower? Because that was super quick. Just undo it and then redo it, because I kind of almost missed it myself.
Okay. So we've got our user preset here that has all of our weird,
all right, user preset there. Yep, cool.
Boom, boom, boom. And then I'm going to go over to all of my sequences over here.
Yep.
And I'm just going to press Command or Control A to select all of them.
All, and notice there's this button here, that's now in the center of screen, Apply Preset, and it's going to apply to the selected.
Here it goes. Here we are. Boom.
That's sick.
So that was pretty fast. But I reckon we can do better than that. I reckon we could add a lot more presets to that rather than having to do them one at a time. And this is kind of where groups come in handy. I mean, groups are just like a good organization tool as well. But if I go back over to my preset browser here, we've got this little folder. You could call it a folder, you could call it a group, you could call it a bin. It's the same thing. It's just a way that we're going to organize our presets. So if I create a new group, and I'm going to call this my AV CHiNWAG group, and then I can take that preset, that export that I've just created, and drag that in. But I can also drag other presets into this. I can drag other groups into this if I wanted to have a really sort of stacked and layered way of organizing this. So for example, if this top group here was the name of my company, within that company, maybe I've got, all right, here's the group for the way that we're going to export all of our broadcast stuff and all of our social stuff. So you can have a real organized structure within there. You can also add system presets to a group. So even though we've got these system presets sitting down here, I can go, look, I want to export this preset, but I also want to take this AIF and drag this in there as well. And now you'll see that it's actually, the look of it is italicized. That's because it's actually referencing that system preset down there. So I've got a group now that has this audio only export, and I have my AV CHiNWAG export within the group. And just like before when we were adding one preset, we can now actually add that entire group to all of those sequences loaded in Media Encoder. So if I go over to where my sequences are, top right, I can just select all of them, go down and select my AV CHiNWAG group. And now when I click Apply Preset, it's going to add that group to each individual sequence that I have loaded. So if you are exporting a lot of sequences and every sequence needs to have multiple exports of it, that's just going to make things so much faster. And it's at that point, if anybody is seriously saying to me, I prefer to export with Premiere Pro, I just laugh at that point.
Yeah. That's super helpful, especially if there's multiple flavors that you need to work with. Sometimes with, I've noticed sometimes people with presets that they use for proxies, because this is where you go in and you start setting up the proxy encode, like what you want. Maybe you do burning time code. Maybe you make a 720 proxy. Maybe you make a 1080 proxy. Depending on the way your workflow is set up, you might be wanting different proxies because you're sharing it to someone who's maybe more remote, and so they just need a lightweight one. And then you might have one that's a bit more
I
resolution.
will say that the new version of proxies that we have at the moment with the low resolution, high resolution has made it that I have to go to this preset browser less. But you're right. If you need to burn in time code or a watermark or something like that, this is the place to go and do that for your proxies.
Yep. All right. How are we on time? I think we're doing okay.
And you got 10 minutes to do watch folders. I've got a little bit of time
to do some stuff. Okay, watch folders. So this is oh, I've just lost the other one of these.
There we go.
Where did I drop? Oh, no, it's here. Here we go. Let's see if I can do this like it's mirrored, so it's weird. Oh, there we go. Yes. So there we are again, in case you missed it earlier. So the one of the posts that I put out was to do with what does this and that have in common? What do shortcuts and watch folders have in common? So let's jump onto my screen here. And can
I just preempt what you're about to say by saying that I was shocked to discover some of what you're about to say.
Cool.
I had never heard it before.
Awesome. Well, be prepared. So you know how we were I was dragging stuff from kind of the desktop or sending it from Premiere Pro, or there was one that was already populated from After Effects. The watch folders, a lot of people actually haven't bothered to kind of go in and use this thing. So what this is, you go in and set up a location of where you want a folder that has something in it that will be triggered to execute a render. So I've got one on a shared folder down there. And so I know that it's part of this media shared location. And notice this is part of a network. So if you're on a network setup, you can actually have this work provided if you were to open up someone else's project in the network on a different machine and it just opens and loads up. All the filters and effects that you've used are installed across the machines, and the footage is all being loaded up because it just connects to it straight away. That is a perfect example of where you can then offload another machine to do your media encoder rendering, literally leaving all the other machines to just cut and just use their grunt on cutting, not trying to disperse it across this rendering in the background. Ooh.
Living the dream.
Let me show you how this works. Now, I've already got these ones set up, right? So I'm just going to make sure I know exactly where this is going. So I've got that one on the media shared watch folder. I've got this masters one as well. Okay, so what have I got here? I've got different outputs. I've got different formats. So my masters one is going to, so here we go. I've got this one here. And if I right click on it, I can reveal where it is. So let's bring that up. It's on my other screen. So this is now giving me the absolute location. So it's drive L, which is part of the network, CHiNWAG, and then render there. Okay. So if I look inside here, I've got this thing where I've got an output folder and a source folder. Now what that does is it puts whatever was inside the top folder, render there, as my watch folder. It gets a date timestamp of what it was that was done, and then it gets thrown in there. Now you'll see here I've actually got an actual Premiere project file. Now if you start sending files like that over, because it can use a Premiere project file or an After Effects project file, what it does is it looks for, and let's just take a look at what I've got here, because there's a few things that we need to be conscientious of, right? It looks for video.
Can the world see your screen at the moment, John? Just because I can't see your screen.
Crap. Thanks, buddy. You should have warned me earlier. I thought I had it turned on. My bad. How bad? How just terrible. Oh, goodness me. So I've got these different locations here for watch folders, right? So if I reveal where they are, it will show it up, and then I can see what's happening inside of it. And that's the folder there called render there. And this source folder is where things get moved. So if I put a project file or a media file, like let's say it's a red file or it's something that's a heavy file, it will actually move them from there into a folder that is date time-stamped based on when that was executed through the Media Encoder watch folder. Now this means you've got stuff that gets one at a time, gets thrown into these bins, and that becomes, as you can see, I've got 3 jobs that went through, which means I've got 3 project files. This is a bit of a mess, okay? And they're probably real project files, or if you're using this to create proxies, because you don't want to do the create proxy step, you can just send it to another machine to go off and make proxies. Now, how can I do this in a clever way? This is where the alias thing kicks in. All right, I'm going to find in here, I've got my footage of my magpie, right? So this is my Maggie. All right, that's the magpie there from earlier today. So I'm just going to find where this is. So I'm going to reveal an Explorer, this particular clip. Now, I'm saying shortcuts because I'm on Windows. If you're on a Mac, it's an alias. So the alias, right, if I was to copy this, copy, and then just to demonstrate how this works, go back to my render there folder, and then I paste a shortcut. Right? That's now a shortcut, not the actual file. If I go to Media Encoder and I look at the queue, whoop, it's already caught it. So what's happening here?
That's crazy.
What's happening here
That is so cool.
So what I've got set up is I've got 2 watch folders working here. So one is creating the Apple ProRes master file, and I've actually got it set up. I'll go away. I keep double clicking things. I've set up 2 watch folders, right? One of them goes to a masters folder. Then I've got another queue that's set up to go to that masters folder and then create my H.264. So why would you do something like that? If you have a job, and it could be a Premiere Pro project that's been worked in a high quality format, and let's say you'll find that when you process heavy effects and you're trying to process from the timeline into H.264, it's going to take a bit longer to do that. When you process it and it's going to be something that's less compressed, like a QuickTime file, it usually renders out that QuickTime file pretty quick in comparison. And part of that process is if you use things like the preview files, if you rendered the previews to be the same format as H.264, well, you can't do H.264. If you do the ProRes 422 HQ, it will go out super quick, like lightning quick. And then I'm using a master that's at the high quality instead of the timeline to make my H.264 file. So you'll see when this reaches the end of this, it will start the other watch folder queue. Now, in order for that to work and not do every single sequence that you have running, you do need to do a couple of things here, some rules. So let's have a look here. I've got 2 things here that are outside folders. So let's just take a look at this set of rules, right? So here I've got some of the rules. You need sequences to be outside of a folder or a bin. So if you've got work in progress sequences, ones that are not ones, oh, there goes my chime.
Chime, ding.
Yeah. You've got things that you don't want to have rendered out from the project, then they stay in a bin. If you have a sequence you want rendered from the project, you've got more than one sequence, then you could share an alias of the project to the watch folder, and it will render all the sequences that are outside of a bin. Cool. Let me show you what I mean. I've got a few here that are outside the bin. I'm actually going to tuck that one away. So the only sequence that I've got that's outside of a bin, let me just do in sequence here, and I'll just zoom in there. So the only sequence not inside a bin, and I'll use the keyboard shortcut, the Alt keyboard shortcut there to close everything. Oh, oops, I'm hitting the wrong button. All right, so that's the only sequence, although I have more, right? Quite a few more. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do a save as of this. Actually, this is a different way to do it. I'm going to select the sequence, then go to File, Export, and I'm going to export that selection as a Premiere project. And where am I going to save that? Well, I'm going to save it to my good old friend.
The watch folder.
It is going to go into the watch folder, which is the render here one, isn't it? Where is my watch folder? Is it this one? No. Oh, hang on. It's there. Render there. That's it. On my network. Okay, so there's the project file. Boom. Okay, let's get out of here. Let's go and watch what's happening here inside of Media Encoder. Okay, so that's just finishing. Oh, look at that.
Bang.
And it grabbed it's actually grabbed in that watch folder the edit of the magpies, which is that sequence. Boom, it's done. Right?
Incidentally, that workflow, I use that every day when I was working in broadcast because I just got sick of selecting the folder that I wanted it to go into and the preset and everything. I just set up a watch folder and said, if I'm exporting a sequence to this folder, just render it to where I want it to go every time.
Yep. So that is kind of cool, right? So experiment with this. You can use it to do quite a lot of things. Watch folders, set them up. They're awesome. All right, what else is here with some of these sort of rules, right? So the thing is you can create individual outputs per preset. So if you've got more than one preset, which we just showed and demonstrated before with Paul, you can do that with a watch folder too. So the watch folder can have a longer list of formats that it's actually going to create from that one watch folder before it's finished the job and then put the source into that source folder. You can name where it's going to go. Each preset will go to its own folder. So if you have a preset for H.264, you can make a folder that it lands in that's H.264. If you've got HEVC, you can make a folder for that preset for that watch folder that's going to go to HEVC. So on and so forth. Now, like I mentioned, the way that this works, you have to have central storage or you have to be utilizing Creative Cloud if you're using team projects, because then it will just automatically know where it should be connecting. And those filters and anything that is part of the project must be installed across all the systems that are going to be opening that. If you're going to use a remote system in order to take advantage of this watch folder workflow where, a different system on a different location that's part of the same central storage can actually execute these renders, which is pretty cool.
And that would be true of fonts as well then, right?
That's right. So the fonts, I'm just thinking if the fonts would get solved on their own, they probably won't. So you'd need to be pretty consistent with the fonts that you're using and have had already opened them. The thing with the licensing, so this is where people kind of question this too, is that the licensing allows you to have two machines kind of running per user. And so in this case, you're not using Media Encoder on your local machine. You're using it on a different machine. It's within the licensing rules. So that's fine. So you don't need to have a second license in order to do this. You can have two machines that are sort of licensed to go, and it won't sort of spit the dummy. But yeah, that's kind of how that works. So that means if you're using the same license and you open on your machine, you will have synchronized your fonts, which means the other one's probably synchronized the fonts too, because it's the same ID. Again, test this. I'd love to get your responses in the comments below.
How you use them too. How you think you might use them in your own workflows.
Yes. All right. Well, that is pretty much what we've got to say tonight.
Look at that. Only 5 minutes over time.
I know, and
with technical problems.
We spent probably 20 minutes mucking around as well. So, be sure to get yourself in the register for this week. So if you registered last week for this pillow prize, which is here, just so you remember what it looks like, right?
Oh, so comfy.
Hang on. I need to switch it. Oh.
I can hear the comfort.
Can you hear me talk through the pillow?
A little bit.
You kind of can. That's weird. So this has been delivered today from the US. It's so cushy and so bouncy. So that's the prize. These things are like hen's teeth, I'm telling you. If you logged in and went to the form and used the right code last week, you've got 1 ticket stub for the raffle. You do it again this week. It's a different form with a different secret code word. Different one. Then you will have 2 raffle tickets. Do you understand how this works? Next week there'll be another one. And if you did that 3 weeks in a row, then you've got 3 chances. By the end of the season, you'll have, we'll have 12 weeks like last time. And we'll probably do the draw on the 12th one. So you have 11 chances if you did every single week.
Wowzers.
Cool. All right. This has been awesome. Thank you for those who were in and part of the chit chat. We always love our returning people who come and give us good curly questions and put up with our rubbish and the technical faux pas. Now that we've got it sorted out, I tell you, we're good to go.
Good to go.
Watch me eat my words next week. Oh, my. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure. Let's do this next week. Same time next week.
That is an idea I could embrace. Sure, let's do it next week. Do you know what? We already know what next week's episode's about.
Do you want to say it?
Nah, you say it. All right, I'll say it.
No, I don't want
to
say it.
You say it.
You say it.
No, I want to say it. No, you say it. Oh, wait, is there an echo? I was waiting for you to say echo.
Echo.
Oh, man. So next week's episode is about sequence settings. And that's
sequence settings.
It's going to be all about sequences, how to make the most of using them, presets, the audio tracks, all that sort of stuff. And then the way to use previews properly to get a workflow that is built around what we just showed you then to make things super fast on your exports. So tune in again next week. I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers. Time to go.
Goodbye.
See ya. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye. 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 Oh, cool. We've got you on screen drinking your tea. Like multiple times. That's rad.
I drink 2 teas.
Well, it looks like you've got 4 now. Oh, no.
Yeah,
to me, it looks like you've got 4. But to everyone else,
it's the same cup,
2.
So it looks like it's 1 cup every time. Nobody can pick it.
That's amazing.
Was that the same cup, or was this the same cup? Or are they both the same cup?
Oh, my God. Now we have visual echo.
It's a glitch in the Matrix.
It is.
And look, I can do it with my hands as well. I got 2 hands. They look exactly the same.
No way.
I put a ring on one so I could tell the difference between them. Oh, this is gold. This has to end up as its own video somewhere.
I think you're right, because it was a bit of a whoopsie. You know what? I'm gonna play the intro out.
Mm-hmm. Do that.
Righto. Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Toodles.
This week on the Adobe Video CHiNWAG, we're exploring the depths of Media Encoder. Don't assume this app is full of crappy presets. There's more than meets the eyes as you customize. Edit here, yet render there. Watch folder this space and embrace your inner YODA of Media Encoder. Join in the live stream with Jon Barrie and Paul Murphy this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Melbourne time.
And start talking about sequence settings. I think that'll be a good one. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I love talking. Yeah. There's just so much power in that tab. There's just so much power because, and I don't think people even see it, you know, but like you got panning, you got routing, you know, there's just so much you can do with that, and track, not track type, of course. Beauty.